Good evening, everybody. I would ask everybody to please stand. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please be seated. Good evening and welcome to our October 2024 Board of Education meeting. This time I'd like to turn over to Mr. Rich.
Thank you. Before we talk about the board recognition night, I think we have two guests from the Nassau County Police Department with us, Andrew Oswald and Chris Lovelace. We are, as a school district, we are so blessed.
Come forward, guys, it's okay.
We are so blessed, and you've heard us speak so many times about the incredible support that we receive from the Nassau County Police Department. Our POP officers are here, even when we don't invite them, they're here. And on a serious note, when we need support, literally they're here in 2 minutes, 3 minutes for any kind of support we need. And we could not be more thankful for the level of support that we get and the level of interest we have from our second precinct and our POP officers and everything that we do. And they're there to support us in any way they possibly can. So welcome, thanks for being with us this evening.
Thank you for your service.
Thank you, guys. Thank you. For that intro, I could get a get out of jail free card. So in October, New York State celebrates Board Recognition Week, month, and it's an opportunity for all of our communities to come together and thank the volunteerism of the members of our Board of Education. And again, I know that you've heard us say this many times over, but our board members volunteer, and it's not just for one meeting a month or 2 meetings a month. This Board of Education spent Saturday night, all day Sunday, all day Monday, and most of Tuesday in New York City attending New York State School Boards Convention, giving up their time to attend conventions, to attend concerts, to do board development and board training. The number of hours that our board commits to becoming better board members and to support our staff and support our kids is just beyond, and we could not be more thankful for all of the time that they invest in supporting us and our kids. So tonight is an opportunity for us to say thank you. There's some gifts, and the school district, as a sign of their thanks, has some chocolates, which everyone but me. But I do see another box of chocolates, so wherever that came from, I'm very thankful. And I think with that, we have some of our groups here who also want to express thanks to our Board of Education, our JTA, and our principals and our curriculum associates.
On behalf of the Jericho Principals Association, Jericho Curriculum Associates Association, Jericho Teachers Association, Civil Service Employees Association, and Learning Center Instructors Association, we would like to thank you and recognize your contribution to the Jericho school community. In your honor, we will be awarding a scholarship to a graduating senior, which will be presented at Senior Awards Night in the spring.
We every year receive citations from our local assembly people, our state senator. We actually have a certificate this evening from Tom Swazi, again giving special congressional recognition to the Jericho Board of Education for the incredible work that they do. So we thank Congressman Swazi for this recognition as well.
Well, thank you very much. I know I speak on behalf of the entire board when I say it truly is an honor to serve the Jericho schools community and most importantly the kids. So I thank all my board members for their hard work. Thank you. All right, we're going to jump right into the agenda. Recommended actions, approval of minutes, recommended motion. Be it resolved that the Board of Education make any necessary corrections and move the approval of the minutes of the regular meeting dated September 26, 2024. Do we have a motion? Ken, second? Divya, any discussion? All in favor? So carried, thank you. All right, we're going to move into reports discussion. We will start with the report from middle school student council, Rob Duncan. Welcome.
Good evening. My name is Arv Goenka, and it is my pleasure to deliver the Student Council report tonight. The SLE theme for the month is courage. Courage can be defined as strength in the face of challenge or danger. The 8th grade class was able to honor the courage and ultimate sacrifice of 1997 Jericho graduate Lieutenant Matthew Lynch when they participated in a wreath-laying ceremony at Arlington National Cemetery while on their trip to Washington, D.C. on October 17th and 18th. Lieutenant Lynch was killed 20 years ago during the Iraq War. The parents of Matthew and his brother Timothy Lynch and family attended the ceremony. We are forever grateful for the life and courage of Matthew Lynch. Students also visited the U.S. Capitol building, many of the national monuments and memorials, the National Holocaust Museum, and the National Museum of African American History and Culture. It was an amazing trip. A special thank you to Mrs. Cantwell for organizing this trip. And a big shout out to Mr. Gleason and the staff members who chaperoned. On October 7th, the Spanish Club hosted a movie in the library to celebrate Hispanic Heritage Month. Students learned about Spanish history and culture, ate popcorn, and watched Puss in Boots: The Last Wish, which featured several Spanish-speaking actors. On October 9th, our literacy leaders were honored at an award ceremony and luncheon in the middle school library for reading 4 books over the summer and writing up book reviews. Thanks to Ms. Conklin for promoting the love of reading in our school. Do you know how to spell goatee? 7th grader and my cousin, Avita Mittal, does. On Friday, October 11th, she won the annual JMS Spelling Bee with a double E in goatee. Runner-up was 6th grader Kern Vera Muchanani. Thanks to Mrs. Scalera and fellow English department teachers for organizing this exciting event. This year's theme for the National PTA Reflections Art Program is Accepting Imperfection. Submissions must include a completed student entry form without imperfections. For more information, check out Canvas or Parent Square. The deadline for entries is November 4th. The 6th grade community service learning class hosted a toiletry drive for Jericho Cares, collecting toothbrushes, toothpaste, shampoo, conditioner, bar soap, paper towels, and toilet paper. We are getting ready to celebrate our 8th annual Obeas Kickoff tomorrow, October 24th. The Obeas program is a comprehensive school-wide bullying prevention program that stresses the importance of upstanders. Our theme this year is A Step in the Right Direction. We selected this theme for our kickoff because we stress the importance of students actively contributing to a positive and supportive environment, both for themselves and for their peers. Stepping in the right direction creates a more inclusive environment where everyone feels valued and respected. Thanks to Ms. Breland for organizing this whole school-wide event. Student Council will be collecting leftover candy from Halloween. Donations can be brought to my locker, outside the attendance office, from November 1st through November 5th. Candy will be donated to Mercy First in Syosset. Well, that's all for now. Make sure you have a happy Halloween.
After the 8th grade trip to Washington, I heard from several students and several teachers, staff members who attended, that this year's trip was exceptional. The highlight being the visit to Arlington Cemetery, and how touching that was. For those of you who ever visit our school swimming pool and look up at the leaderboard or the records, Matthew Lynch still holds, from 20 years ago, still holds about a half a dozen records from the years that he spent on our swim team. Just an incredible young man, and again, had to be such a touching moment being in Arlington and recognizing him and his courage.
Really wonderful report, a lot of great things happening in the middle school, so thank you. Really well done. We'll move on to the high school student council report. Caitlin Choi, Rachel Lee. Good evening and thank you for joining us.
Good evening, Mr. Frischman, Jericho Community, board members, Max. October has been busy, but we are excited to share the highlights of what's been happening at Jericho.
First up, we had our annual blood drive on October 8th, and it was a huge success. We collected a great number of donations, and post-donation snacks were provided by our Medical Minds and Red Cross Club.
On October 10th, we held Wellness Day, where students took part in activities like yoga, mindfulness workshops, and of course, petting the fan favorite therapy dogs. During the last 3 periods, underclassmen attended the newly implemented club fair held in the Sandspringer to explore our various club offerings.
Last week, on October 18th, we hosted tennis with the teachers. Students got to face off against their teachers on the tennis courts.
Looking ahead, Thursday is the 3rd annual piano showcase at 7 p.m.
Also on Thursday, our art students will be taking a field trip to the Museum of Modern Art.
On Friday, our pep band will be pumping up school spirit at the Friday night Lights football game. Speaking of spirit, the music department fall spirit wear store is open from October 23rd to November 1st.
Tickets for our upcoming fall drama production of 12th Night will also go on sale soon. The show runs from November 21st to the 23rd, so mark your calendars.
In November, the annual K-12 art show will take place at the Jericho Public Library, showcasing the student artwork that was just too good for the fridge. The wonderful works will be on display, and there will be a reception at the end of the month.
Now, we are thrilled to announce that 11 of our agriculture and science research students, all members of our FFA chapter, have been selected as state finalists in the prestigious Grow New York student competition. These students make up 5 of the 8 finalist teams chosen to pitch their innovative solutions to challenges in agriculture, food, and technology at the finalist event in Ithaca on November 6th and 7th.
We are also proud to announce that 7 juniors and seniors have been selected to attend New York's first Youth Agricultural Leadership Conference, an initiative from Governor Hochul's office taking place in Albany from November 13th to 14th.
We are also thrilled to announce that 2 of our students achieved outstanding results at the ACAP Science Fair, a competition focused on biomedical research for middle school and high school students. Ashra Shah earned 2nd place, offering $500 for herself and $500 for the school, while Alexa Tan received an honorable mention award. This competition challenges students to conduct novel, graduate-level research in fields such as biology and other medical specialties. We are beyond proud of our students' hard work and their accomplishments in this highly competitive event.
On a different note, we are excited to highlight that Manfred Lim is collaborating with an international team of researchers on a project named Sonda, which aims to mitigate anthropogenic noise in our oceans. The team has already secured $6,000 in funding for the research and development, and we look forward to seeing how this project goes.
Finally, on September 24th, Manfred Lim and Samira Mahiba participated in the 8th annual New York City Green Schools Conference as Green Mentors. They engaged in interactive panels focused on sustainable technologies and initiatives, along with policy dialogues with key figures in green education. We commend our Jericho Science Research seniors for their impactful science projects and commitment for leveraging their research for meaningful global change.
A huge congratulations to the students selected for the All-County and Long Island String Festival. We will soon be receiving their music folders, and we're so proud to have so many students representing Jericho in the prestigious music programs.
For sports, our boys badminton team is currently playing in the semifinals and fighting hard to defend their title after a remarkable 58-match win streak. And on Friday, our boys varsity soccer team will be playing in their playoff game. Let's all show up and support them as they push for a big victory.
We also hosted senior games recently, and more to come as girls volleyball and football host theirs on Friday. It was great to see such a high energy from everyone involved.
Finally, the interest meetings for winter sports starts tomorrow as we prepare for the winter season.
That's all for this month. Thank you for listening.
Thank you both. It sounds like students in the high school have been very busy and very successful, so commend everybody on their efforts. Thank you. Moving on to Max Sharp, our student board representative, senior class member. Max is going to present some interesting information.
Thank you so much. First off, I'd like to thank the board for this opportunity. I really appreciate this, and I think, so this survey is going to be about a cell phone usage in general and getting a better understanding of how students in Jericho use their cell phones, both on a regular basis at home in general and during the school day. And of course, this is a very modern topic, and I really appreciate the opportunity to further understand the students' perspective and situations with cell phones. So first off, this survey was sent out by a Canvas to all high school students, and I was able to receive 361 responses to get a really good gauge and sample size for all of the students at Jericho. And the survey was broken down into personal cell phone usage, students' sentiment on their own cell phone usage, self-regulation regarding cell phones, phone usage in school, and sentiment on potential cell phone regulation. So I would also like to acknowledge that biases may have occurred in this, of course, in this survey because from my experiences talking with other students, cell phone usage is maybe a bit of a personal topic, and they also the prospect of regulation from the board might seem a bit, scary to some students. So I just want to acknowledge that possibility. So first off, I asked students to select their average daily cell phone screen time, and the results from this were about less than 1% had less than 1 hour, about 10% had between 1 and 2 hours, 25% had 2 to 4 hours, 31% had 4 to 6, 18% had 6 to 8, and 15% had over 8 hours per day. And coupling with this, about 52% of students agree that they believe their own screen time is too high, with about 26% feeling neutral towards this. So this does show, of course, a large amount of cell phone usage from students, and coupled with that, an acknowledgement and an understanding of their own potentially negative cell phone usage. So in addition to this, about 50% of students agree that their phone is hindering their productivity, with 20% being neutral, and about 28% feel anxious or nervous when their phone is not with them. About 28% also find it difficult to stop using their phone. And on a select all that apply basis, 65% indicated a lack of productivity from their phones, 28% a lack of feeling present, 63% a lack of sleep, and 44% eye strain, and 23% increased anxiety. And then overall, to culminating in all of this, about 33% of students have indicated that they feel that they are addicted to their phones. So I think overall, what this does show is, of course, a large amount of cell phone use and a large amount of that acknowledgement on personal cell phone usage, but specifically for questions, maybe talking about more of the details on that, like such as, I often find it difficult to stop using my phone. I honestly thought that'd be a much greater percentage. I'm definitely a 5 on that one in terms of agreement, and I think that might be, might indicate a lot of maybe disconnect between the student's own perception of some of the more details and within the moment, if they're really not having that great understanding of just how negative some of that phone usage could be. And moving on, and to discuss regulation, about 20% of students indicated that their parents or guardians regulate their own screen time, with around 50% indicating that they regulate their own screen time, and 30% feeling neutral on this. And additionally, about 30% of students agree that they have tried methods of self-regulation in the past, but have found it difficult to follow through with them. And then finally, 28% of students believe that their current level of self-regulation is inefficient or ineffective. And I believe that this one was also very surprising to me, because initially I thought this question would mirror almost exactly the proportion of students that believe that their screen time is too high, because of course it would go to follow, if you believe your screen time is too high, you're not doing a good enough job of self-regulating. However, the lower proportion on this does indicate that there might be a bit of a disconnect between, like I said, students actually understanding the disconnect of the negative phone usage that they're having, maybe on a smaller scale within the moment. And I think some sort of great initiatives that can be done to kind of circumvent this and deal with this problem could be just greater awareness through, potentially wellness days or things like that. I've had a lot of positive experiences with those kinds of wellness days, of more like a public forum kind of discussion in some classes, and where students can kind of just talk about their own experiences, hear from both their peers and teachers that, hey, we understand that cell phone usage, it's hard to stop using your phone. It's a very pervasive problem that, of course, we felt the effects from. I'm sure almost everyone in this room can agree with that. And I think for students to hear those kinds of conclusions from both their peers and their teachers, and to actually work through finding further methods of self-regulation, as we've seen a lot of students are already trying to, I believe that can be extremely helpful. And then moving on to more in-school phone usage, around 75% of students have indicated that teachers in the past have required them to place their phones in their bags, with 65% of students saying that teachers have in the past required them to place their phones with the teachers. 37% have experienced negative grade-based consequences for phone usage, with 45% experiencing teachers that have confiscated their phones in the past, or the phones of their peers in the classroom. Additionally, about 40% of students agree with the sentence, I have used a VPN in the past to bypass school app/website restrictions. Which is really interesting. And additionally, about 25% have indicated that either they frequently or very frequently check/use their phone during independent work time in class, with around 8% indicating that they frequently or very frequently check/use their phone while the teacher is talking during class time. I'm sure a lot of teachers can agree with that here. And then for the final section, I gauged students' sentiment on potential cell phone regulation, and a lot of these results were very unsurprising. 83% of students believe it is essential for students to bring their phone to school. Around 75% of students indicate that they would feel uncomfortable if they didn't bring their phone to school, with about 65% of students indicating that they would feel unsafe if they didn't bring their phone to school. And then finally, about around 90% of students believe that it is their right to bring their phone to school. What was that percentage? 90. So the overwhelming majority on that. And of course, I think through my discussions with teachers, fellow students, administrators, I think that of course this is a very pressing problem. I think it's very clear the effect that phones have on everyone's usage throughout their lives, and affecting it in a variety of different ways. And of course, I do believe that the cell phone usage this conversation should be very much also considered in the lens of device usage within school in general, because I believe a lot of the distractions that phones may cause can also be linked in with devices. But overall, these results are very valuable in understanding the students' both perspective and experiences with cell phones. And again, like I said, I really appreciate that the board is looking deeper into this topic and working towards some creative projects.
Wonderful.
Are your results something you could share with us?
Yeah, of course. I'll assemble this into the Google Doc to kind of culminate all of the results, and I believe last year we posted it on the Board of Ed websites. I think that'd be very helpful as well. Yeah, it's a lot of numbers.
You said 90% think it's their right to bring it to school.
Yes, the question is, it is my right to bring my phone to school, and 9% either agree or strongly.
But all those were to bring my phone to school.
Yes.
Max, really impressive report, shows tremendous initiative.
Thank you.
I think it's looking to answer a question that a lot of us don't know the answer to. Obviously, this is a controversial topic in education. There's arguments for, arguments against. I for one, will be the first to admit, I get that little notification on my iPhone, I don't know if it happens on Monday morning, what your screen time was for the week before, and it's you're kind of incredulous that you spent that much time looking at this device.
And try to swipe it away as quickly as possible, get anyone.
That being said, no, yeah, it's
I don't
really,
agree with that.
but I think the board acknowledges this is an important conversation, and that's why we set aside time for a dedicated work session to discuss this on November 14th. So I would encourage as many people to attend in person as possible, students, family members, faculty. We really want to get the input from everybody regarding their preferences and opinions on cell phone policy, because again, I don't think we're even close to being able to make a decision on this, if there's a decision even to be made. The state is kind of danced around it. We don't know if there's going to be direction from SED, but again, it's something that we really want the input from the community on. So thanks again, great job.
Thank you.
All right, we'll move to the PTA Council report.
Good evening, Mr. Richmond, Board of Education members, Central Administration, faculty, staff, and community members. My name is Aileen Gingold, and I am the president of the Jericho Joint PTA Council, and it's my pleasure to be here tonight. Yesterday, the council held its first Health and Wellness Fair. We were so fortunate to have Dr. Evelina Graber, Director of the Women's Heart Program at the Katz Institute for Women's Health and President of the American Heart Association Board of Directors for Long Island, as well as a Jericho parent, along with Dr. Regina Jacob, Medical Director of the Cancer Survivorship at Northwood Health Center, speak to us and our community about heart health and cancer screening and prevention. In addition, we enjoyed a mindful and wellness activity from Tina Conroy, also from Northwell. All three speakers were so informative and was an amazing night. Thank you to everyone who attended. We look forward to our continued partnership with Northwell and the Katz Women's Institute. The Jericho Joint PTA Council and the JTA had a great opportunity to meet face-to-face with our Board of Education last week. We discussed issues such as the selection of our next superintendent, clubs in our elementary schools, AI for students, cell phone use, and the valedictorian selection process. We are very fortunate to have this open dialogue and direct communication with our board so that parents' concerns can be heard. This week is School Board Recognition Week. We'd like to thank our school board members for all their hard work and dedication. We are very grateful for your commitment to our children. We all strive for the same goal. Jericho is the best school district and we want to keep it that way. Every decision that you make impacts thousands of students who attend the Jericho School District. We know you don't take these decisions lightly and we appreciate all your dedication. Tonight, the wrap gifts and the cups are tokens of our appreciation from the PTA Council.
Thank you.
Thank you. On October 7th, the Joint Council had the privilege of speaking with fan favorite Mr. Greg Sloan, Curriculum Associate for School Counseling, about the Comprehensive Counseling Center for grades K through 12. Greg has always been a favorite of council. We are glad to learn about the addition of and the great work of Jasmine Wang, our elementary school counselor. All of our elementary schools have been very, very busy. Cantiac held its Welcome Back picnic and had over 200 families participate. In addition, their 5th grade committee is off to a great start, holding a very successful sports night. Jackson Elementary's PTA has been very successful in getting members and it has already hit over 300 for the year. They also had a very successful picnic and fun run. The Jeffrey Ratner Robert Seaman School held its Fall Festival on Friday, October 18th. This event was a big success and included a bouncy house, carnival games, raffles, sports, and more. The middle school had a book fair already and is planning for their annual Oveus Day tomorrow. They will be having a speaker and will be having box out to bullying. The high school supported the Morgan Foundation and breast cancer awareness last Friday with their Pink Out Day. Pink swag was in full force this month and displayed proudly by the varsity football team, boys and girls soccer teams, the Jayettes, the girls varsity tennis team, girls varsity swim team and diving, and the girls varsity volleyball teams. Great job. In addition, the senior committee has been very busy selling dot cakes, spiritware, collecting donations, and meeting to plan for their senior party. Reflections is going on in all schools, so please reach out to your PTAs if your child is interested. SEPTA had a joint meeting with all 3 elementary schools on October 9th to discuss food for thought. and will be holding a cookies and canvas on November 19th. Please make sure to attend. Thank you and have a good night.
Thank you. Moving into the superintendent's report, Mr. Grishman.
Thank you, Chris. Just I want to highlight on Amy's report, the wellness activity that the PTA sponsored was an incredible activity, and I hope it's the beginning of maybe an annual event where we bring some expertise into the district. Again, the information that was shared was so valuable and so appreciated, and again, very worthwhile, and I look forward to that becoming a regular event. Several other pieces of information. I want to thank the community for supporting our food drive last week. We run a food drive 2 or 3 times a year to support Jericho kids and Jericho families, and the level of support that we get from our staff and from our community is always outstanding, so a thank you. We also, last evening, welcomed the representatives from Canon who presented the works of our students, short stories, poems, some illustrations that Canon prints for us, and we highlight about a dozen kids who participate in the Canon activity. And I want to thank Dan for and ELA staff for coordinating that activity in year 7, I believe. Again, a wonderful activity for our students, and thanks to that work. Also, last week, Joanna Kletter hosted the elementary principals of Nassau County. Joanna is the president of that organization and did an incredible job in welcoming over 40 elementary principals from around the county, and very proudly puffed up as she showed off the Ratner Seaman Elementary School, the programs, the staff, and the facility. So congratulations for your leadership and for showing off our kids and our building. So we've been talking about heightening security in our district for the last many years. We just are in the process of implementing a system called Raptor. There are units now in the high school, and we will be installing additional units in the middle school and 3 elementary schools over the next week. In effect, it is a device where you need government ID, driver's license. You put the driver's license in that device. We've had a similar device, but it did not go out to the same number of organizations to check when you put that license in terms of doing the background check. This new Raptor system goes out into sex offender notifications and several other agencies to determine whether there's any background issue with the person coming in to visit school. The school district also has the ability to place names in the Raptor system for, again, if we have some local folks that we do not want on property for obviously a legitimate legal reason. Again, this Raptor system is in the process of being installed. We've seen it being used so far and very pleased with it. And again, thank John Gordon for, again, finding the system and working to get the system installed in our schools. Also wanted to mention, again, last week we retried, I guess over the last 2 weeks, our parent notification system, our robocall system, using our parent square as the basis. Patrick, I know, has been working on this for quite a while to make sure that in an emergency situation, and whether that's a snow closing or a go home alert, that we have all parents and all staff receiving notification from the parent square robocall system. And again, in terms of the last 2 tests, Patrick reported back that there literally was a 99.9% immediate, within I think 2 or 3 minutes, notification of everyone who's on that system. So we're pleased that as we go into the winter and look at what the Farmer's Almanac is predicting, that we do have a system of notification that we're confident in. I also wanted, again, to shout out to Ivy for an incredible presentation at our last work session. again, overviewing all of the wonderful work that comes out of our curriculum and instruction department. Again, the work of our staff members, our curriculum associates, our building principals in supporting a broad base of professional development that keeps us on the cutting edge of instruction. And again, joint effort under Ivy's leadership. And I just wanted to, again, thank Ivy publicly for putting the presentation together and bringing it all to the public to see and appreciate all the things that are going on. And thank you very much.
Any questions?
Any update on the functioning or the policies on our electric charging stations?
Patrick, are you with us this evening? I know that we're still having some issues. Patrick, can you give us an update on our EV charging stations?
Yeah. So we checked, we actually spoke with the vendor today. They're replacing the units that we have. They're waiting for the new ones to be shipped because we've had a bunch of issues with them connectivity-wise. With that said, they reported today that they were connected 91.8% of the time without issue. I find that a little dubious because I've had a lot of people telling me they've had experiences where they weren't charging, or they were or the charging was intermittent, or there were other issues. Up to this point, we checked today. I think we have about $94 in electricity so far that has been charged, so people are able to use them. But really, we just want to replace the units at this point, try and get the new ones in. But again, with that said, we're actually doing okay. As far as connectivity goes, we have one unit down right now. The rest have all been functional or operational. I think it said since October 16th was the last time another one of them was down, but I'm kind of spitballing.
With
Not
no
sure.
framework for if that's all out or it's $94. Sounds like a
It's
pittance.
not a tremendous amount, but there aren't a ton of school districts doing this to compare it to right now, and you'd have to find a district. You'd either have to disaggregate.
How many hours of charging is $94?
What's that?
How many hours of charging is $94?
Well, we could do the math. I believe it's 50. There's an initial charge, and then I think it's 50 cents per kilowatt, or maybe 39 cents per kilowatt. I think we lowered it because someone complained about it. And then there was a $15 surcharge if you went over. $15 surcharge that a couple of teachers asked us, hey, if we could bump that, grace period a little bit, which we did. We want people to use them, so we've given it, I think the grace period now is 40 minutes. So we've been tweaking it as we go. Connectivity's good, usage is okay, but we'd like to get the new units in before we start blasting information to the community and saying, hey, come take advantage of these.
Yeah, and have we gotten any closer to developing just formal policies on this, other than the 40-minute leeway? Is there any other
I think
restrictions, policies, or anything like that?
like a specific, what do you have in mind?
I honestly don't have one, don't know what we would need to, it's just basically show up, charge your car, and if you're
Yeah,
not
everything
charging,
that
you
we
have
need
to
to
be
be
gone
in
in 40
place is
minutes.
in place. We write about, they're connected in our network.
No, I don't have a suggestion. I know it's just how long you can park for.
The only thing that came across was how much you're gonna charge and what's the length of time during that one particular charge are you gonna allow that vehicle to be charged? Those are the two areas, unless you wanna limit after school or what have you. There's nothing else to really put into a policy.
Okay, cool. I know we've talked about this before.
Just a note of thanks to Patrick. This has become a more complex issue for Patrick and for our buildings and ground staff than we anticipated, and we appreciate Patrick's patience, which he is known for. I don't understand why people are laughing at that, but I just appreciate all of your patience, Patrick.
I just want to confirm, our elementary school playgrounds are still meant to be open on the weekends, because I've been getting couple notices that they've been closed, particularly camp yet. So I don't know, but they should be open. If they're not open, please send an email or a text to the superintendent.
Or to Sam.
They already do. We talked about this. Can you just remind the board, or remind me, what is our policy on backpacks in the middle school? That they're not allowed to be used, and why they're not allowed to be used, how we enforce that, are there punishments involved?
Chad, can you help us out, please?
Backpacks are supposed to be in student lockers throughout the day. You can drop off in the morning, pick them up in the afternoon. I think that policy came out in 2004 with Cecile Wren, who was the principal at the time. The purpose that we have for that is that it helps with organization on students' backpacks when they're carrying them. Sometimes we come with a bit of a black hole where things disappear to the bottom of them, never to be seen again. The second issue is an orthopedic issue. We're worried about sixth graders walking around with huge backpacks on, sometimes bigger than them. And probably most importantly is the crowding in the hallway. So walking around with a backpack on is like a person and a half. So it takes up a little bit more space, but also we have a 4-minute passing period. So students end up congregating outside of classrooms, and you get 30 kids waiting outside a classroom queued up to go in because they don't have to go to a locker on the far side of the building, and you have 300 kids going the other direction. It's very difficult to get by them. We actually had that situation during COVID because we did these lockers during COVID, and hallway crowding was a big concern during that time. So in terms of consequences or punishments, the most serious consequence has been a reminder to go back to the classroom, to go back to the locker.
Are there serial remindees or serial recipients of reminders?
There are some students that need more reminders.
It is middle school.
And so from that standpoint, why does that not get carried over to the high school? Other than, I guess, the orthopedic issue, I understand. What's the different dynamic between middle school versus high school?
We've never run into an issue where we needed to put a policy in place. Students are bigger, they carry around their stuff. Some students use the lockers, not enough do. The rooms are a little bigger, especially the new wing in the high school. So a lot of the books or bags are put in the back of the room during class time.
I think there's a bit of a traffic flow difference. The middle school is largely a one-lane highway, whereas the high school has 2 lanes to it. So that plays part of it.
Fantastic.
Got a little bit of a request. I know that on Tuesday afternoons, middle school faculty has their faculty meeting, at which point the middle school library is not available for middle school students. Is that by design? Is there some other place where the middle school faculty could potentially meet and make the middle school library accessible for students? Or do we want them going home at that point?
I would say it's something we could think about. The library is definitely the most conducive place to have the adults working together collaboratively. There's not a large space like that. There's certainly, our last faculty meeting was done in breakout rooms, so the library could have been open during last Tuesdays, but there are some times when we do need this space for the teachers. We can look into other spaces.
Like I said, I don't have middle school anymore, but it's something that comes up. And I just want to confirm again, because middle school clubs are after school, before sports.
Yes.
Thank you. Perfect, just going down the list. Given what's going on in our national political scene, do we have any special activities planned for the upcoming 2 weeks from a civics or civic responsibility standpoint from our history department?
We do. Eric, I wonder the comment, please.
Yeah, and thank you for giving me a couple hours heads up on this. I was able to think, I really do appreciate it. The word special.
I wanted you to look like you were spontaneously brilliant.
You
blew it.
That's my usual shtick, but
And knowing Eric, that would have been just fine.
all right, then maybe I will be. You know, special is the word that's throwing me. The truth is, we spend throughout the social studies program a lot of time on the elections, but we try and do it in a way that's more often than not organically coming out of our curriculum. So as early as elementary school, election day, K through 3 would be treated almost like a national holiday. It's an event that brings people together and develops a civic consciousness. So it builds sort of a common culture. By grades 4 and 5, it's coming up within the theme of rights and responsibilities, more of a civic duty. The students might be making classroom constitutions and talking about voting as part of civic engagement, which is necessary to maintain a democracy. By the time you get to middle school, certainly grades 7 and 8, elections are closely aligned with the American history curriculum that you have in those grades. So certainly there are many opportunities to connect current events to we might call enduring issues in social studies. So questions of federalism, important elections in history. I think by 7th grade, it's a time that teachers are definitely carving out space to deal with the elections. So there are activities going on starting this week and next week where students are beginning to think about their own perspective on some of the issues that might intersect with the elections. Might have an activity where they think of a question they might ask of the candidates about these issues. Similar things going on in 11th grade, connecting the elections to the history content of the class. Now, fast forward to senior year, more than half of our students take AP Government. Those teachers have consciously changed the sequence of units in that course. So the unit that would be dealing with political socialization would be dealing with the platforms of the various parties that might have been a month from now, they're doing now to help develop more of a consciousness of the election issues. The AP Government class, as most of our classes, are taking a close look at media literacy this year, so talking about bias and perspective and framing of stories. Similarly, students who are not taking AP Government might be taking our digital citizenship class. They're taking a close look at media bias and framing through digital media and how algorithms with these media sources have been contributing to increasing political polarization in the United States. I could go on and on.
So under your leadership, they are taking advantage of real-world issues right now and moving that into the classroom so that, as you said, they're moving up curriculum, we're moving it around in terms of timing so that we're not letting this fabulous learning opportunity or teaching opportunity pass us by.
Very well said. And I would say also it gives us a chance to double down on our enduring mission to teach students how to deliberate appropriately about issues that are in dispute. So we're aware that there are many perspectives in our classes. We're aware that there are many perspectives in our communities. So everything is done in the backdrop of calmly and politely.
And so peace realm is across the realm.
Absolutely.
Thank you. As someone mentioned before, Mr. Superintendent, as you know, we were with us at the NYSBA conference this past week, and there were two issues that came up in several of the panels and in several private discussions that we've talked about at board meetings that, as you do, you are all knowing about everything going on in New York education, but you know, one of the things that we had a little bit of a discussion about was the mixed competition policy regs that state ed had put forward, and through a combination of superintendents such as yourself, athletic directors such as Mr. Mankiewicz, and boards, that policy was shelved. What was disclosed during this NYSBA conference was that they're planning on bringing some form of that regulation back in the spring. Now, I saw the face, but this was put forward by one of the attorneys at New York State Ed. And again, without knowing what they're going to propose, I can't say we're against it, but I'm hoping that you and Mr. Mankiewicz in your leadership positions in the athletic community are going to be on top of that and will be able to relay back to us any concerns where if we need to take a more active role opposing it as we did earlier in the year or earlier in the calendar year, we'll be in a position to do that.
Absolutely.
Thank you. And the second thing, for those who attended our work session where Dr. Sherman presented on the teacher training program, we also spent some time talking about regionalization, which is another issue that New York State Ed is trying to go down and with various consequences to communities like Jericho, where we had a good 15 or 20 minute conversation led by the superintendent about that. That came up a lot over the last week. There were two events, or sort of one was due to concern about opposition to it, the Secretary of Education, Mrs. Betty Rosa, and one of her senior deputies, the Senior Deputy Commissioner for Education Policy, Jeffrey Madison, Matt Tisson, gave a presentation that was, not presentation, a discussion that was, words are failing me, not proctored, they were, it was like a discussion. Panel, whatever you want to use. Anyway, what came across there is facilitated, thank you. I think sort of leads the, or continues the disagreement that I think, Mr. Superintendent, you and I have had, where on the one hand, they would say, oh, we're not looking to mandate anything, but on the other hand, they basically said that yes, there's going to be a sharing of resources. And just as an example, Mr. Madison, who gave the first talk about it, said, you know, we're not asking anyone to give up their local investment, which was immediately followed by Secretary of Education Rosa saying, you know, we're trying to find ways we can be helpful, and by that I mean collectively. And so it was really asking everyone to do their best thinking on ways that we can share the wealth and the learning. Again, that goes back to my concern that the government is going to try to mandate that districts across the county, under the supervision of our BOCES superintendent, not our district superintendent, are going to tell boards how to allocate resources. Not to put Mr. Goodstadt on the spot, but he has delivered to us and the vast number of Ingerman clients, you know, a memo saying that it appears that to overlap the roles of the BOCES superintendent with responsibilities commonly understood to rest with locally elected boards of education. Did you hear anything over the last 3 days that made you more or less, or 4 days, less concerned about the negative impact of regionalization on Jericho, the teaching, the teachers, our resources, our funding, or anything like that?
Are you asking Steve or asking?
I'm asking Mr. Superintendent. Mr. Steve was not there.
I still firmly stand by the comments I made last week, that I do not believe that we are going to be mandated to lose our local control over our budget, over seats in our classroom. I am still firmly convinced, based upon the people that I've spoken to legislatively and people that I've spoken to in state education department, and including our local district superintendent, and probably most so in my conversations with Larry that I've had at the conference and before the conference.
Larry Levin, our district BOCES superintendent.
Our BOCES superintendent.
Well, did you see, I mean, today they just came out with a new, what is it, 121-2 or 124-2, that talks about a description of BOCES superintendent job description. It was a new BOCES superintendent job description.
Is it any different than the prior one?
I believe so, and I believe it, because it specifically talks about regionalization. And it almost seemed like they were saying that the BOCES superintendent will have to report and follow the directive of the Secretary of Education, which would be different, and I can forward to you after this meeting. Basically, it sounded, and again, I'm not a lawyer, don't pretend to be, that the Secretary of Education will be able to dictate to the BOCES superintendent actions that they would need to take, where normally the BOCES superintendent would, I believe, simply be responsible to the BOCES board that it reports to. And just for a little context, so people understand, your local or New York State, and please correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Goodstadt or Mr. Superintendent, or anyone else who knows, you know, New York State has a Senate and its own assembly. And those groups go ahead and appoint a board, the Board of Regents. And our regent is, Mr. Superintendent?
Roger Tillis.
Roger Tillis. The Board of Regents then, who are unelected officials, then go out and appoint the Secretary of Education, who's currently Mrs. Betty Rosa, who was the one giving this presentation on Monday, or this discussion on Monday, who then doesn't report to the governor, and is basically a standalone entity that reports to the Board of Regents, who are dictating this. It's the same Board of Regents who tried to jam through the mixed competition, which there were a few people who were in favor of that, and here they have this policy, which, as we talked about a month ago, or not a month ago, 2 weeks ago, trying to do on an emergency basis, and I do believe something that they're going to continue to try to do. You know, I didn't speak to a superintendent that was happy about it, but they're basically unhappy because they have to do this 44-page questionnaire. I didn't find a board member who was happy about it, though I will say, unfortunately, there seems to be a vast amount of ignorance about it. So I just ask that you continue to, as the most politically connected person up here when it comes to this, with state ed, to continue to update on this, because I certainly hope you're right, but I would love to be prepared if somehow it turns out that you're incorrect. And as you know, many districts are sending letters, many districts are fighting against it, and quite frankly, I don't see the positive of it. From your definition, like, if they go through with it the way you're saying, they've really accomplished virtually nothing.
Again, I think if you look at 720 school districts, there are many proposals that have been around and need to be explored, especially again, from my experience, in the North Country and in the Southern Tier. And I think I had shared with the board, I was with the superintendent recently who was expressing his concern that in his relatively small rural school district, he had an uncertified teacher teaching Algebra 1 and an uncertified teacher teaching, it was either biology or chemistry. So again, some of the discussions that I've heard have talked about using Google Classroom, using Zoom, and letting districts choose to look at strategies to provide better education for kids. Those discussions that I've heard at this point have been voluntary cooperative agreements between school districts. We have cooperative agreements currently, cooperative purchasing agreements, cooperative agreements in maintaining our buses and other school district buses. Those are examples, and I truly believe that firstly, to your point, Sam, they really have not given a lot of specifics, and they're promising that with time they're going to put together more specifics in the regionalization plan. I think that will be helpful for us to understand. And my view is I want to see that before at least I would write a letter or recommend that the board wrote a letter.
And I understand that the problem, or one of the issues, is they're not leaving a lot of time for that discussion. And even you agreed that putting this through as an emergency resolution for the objective of doing it. And as I said, when they talk about, we want to see how we can share resources, if we're talking about Google Classroom, there's no one, that you're going to find in the North Country that's going to teach AP Seminar any better than Dr. Hartnett. And I would hate to have someone from the state come down and say, oh, Dr. Hartnett now has to use Google Classroom to teach his AP Seminar class.
I would argue that, and again, it's probably an issue for us to look at down the road, or for Steve to look at, but I would say that, to my knowledge, in terms of current organization, that is not something that the state can force on us. We may voluntarily send Mike to the North Country.
You've been wanting to do that for years.
But again, on a serious note, I do not believe that there is legal authority to take a Jericho employee paid for by the Jericho School District, supported by Jericho taxpayers, and force that person to do something other than what's in our collective bargaining agreement.
And
Absolutely right.
I'm sorry, Dr. Bowser.
That would be gifting public funds from your taxpayers to someone else and service them outside of your district where you're not legally obligated to do.
And I agree with that, and that's the issue I have with it. When you read through
You might want to
the
talk to me, sir. I'm considered an expert on these things.
I have no doubt that you are, and I'd love to know who you are if you're an expert. The more experts we have, the better.
I think your law firm will tell you who I am, and your law firm might also tell you that I'm an expert.
But this is a new policy, and I fully understand.
That's static. The Commissioner of Education has no direct oversight over your day-and-day operations, just like the school board as a legislative body has no day-to-day authority over school staff. You're the school board, you can't tell them, the janitor, to empty the garbage, all right? So the way that it's structured is that they can't come in and tell you to do. You guys aren't in danger of you losing your local control. They're never gonna fire a teacher for kids' tests. It hasn't been done all over the country. So you guys, you don't have to worry about Albany. They're impotent, okay?
I just wanted to say one thing with regards to regionalization, and that was
I'm
just
sorry for interrupting, sir.
Appreciate the knowledge.
what I took away from that panel discussion was that this was not the taking away of resources from more endowed districts. It was in fact the sharing of resources
amongst under-resourced districts. That's what I took away from that. And Jay Warono, the facilitator of this, this discussion, who is the executive director. Moderator, thank you. Okay. The executive director and general counsel for NYSSBA, in no uncertain terms, and it might have actually been a direct quote, said that this is not a mandate to share. It's not a mandate to share or merge. And so I think we all need more additional information to come out about this, but I think it should have taken the temperature down a bit about it, because it doesn't appear that we are in any way being forced to share resources.
And I understand what you're saying. Two things to add to that. Jay Warona, so if anyone doesn't know, is NYSSBA is the New York State School Board Association. They represent school boards supposedly as a collective group with state ed. Jay Warona is their counsel. He's been there for forever, and he's retiring at the end of this year. The issue I have with Jay Warona are several, but I will say this, and I think this sums it up. When there was a discussion about about the mixed gender competition or mixed competition, Jay Warona characterized the opposition to that policy, which was the opposition which included the Jericho School Board, which included the Jericho Superintendent, which included the Jericho Athletic Director. He described that specifically as suburban hysteria, which personally I took as a little derogatory, and I'm really hard to insult. But so I don't necessarily think Mr. Warona was no, I understand, but what I'm saying is I don't believe Mr. Warona in his job as moderator was necessarily hard challenging what was being said on that panel, because I'll say afterwards in a private conversation with the deputy, Jeffrey Madison, I had a small group conversation with him. He didn't even know what was in the mandate. He did not even know what was in the regulation. He didn't.
Specific language.
Mrs. Martinoff was there. There were only 3 of us there. And we were asking him, and he said, that is not in there. And we said, it is in there. We told him where it was, and he goes, oh, I guess we're gonna have to, get comments and change that. So I understand. And look, I didn't expect Mrs. Rosa or Mr. Madison to show up and say, oh, you know what, it's all peaches and cream, or don't worry about it. They were there to, to some extent, put it forward. And to the point about New York law, I am no expert in New York law. However, as I said, I take
With all
advice
due
from my
respect, if
counsel.
you go to their guidance, if you go to the guidance from the School Board Association and all these organizations, I could show you stuff that's in violation of law that they've been doing for decades.
Right, so why wouldn't they do that here?
Right, so the thing is.
But that's the exact point. It's
Yeah, no,
why wouldn't they do it in violation of law?
That's basically what it is.
Just, if I may, just because we've been going on this for a while, and I totally respect your opinion on this, and we've actually spoken to Mr. Goodstead. In typical fashion, I think the state is very thin on information with this. I do agree with Sam,
They're broken.
that, putting this through as some sort of emergency action and submitting this long questionnaire that they've since extended they've pushed back the deadline. I just think there's a complete lack of information here. I personally have concerns. We've discussed this with council, we've discussed it as a board, discussed it with the superintendent. But really, I think until we have more information, and I do agree with you.
I have all the region's phone numbers.
No,
Cell numbers.
I don't doubt that. I think.
I've turned down positions and offerings from the governor,
I think
the
at the
Board
end
of
of the day,
Regents,
though-
Roger Tilley, but basically, I'll
You
show
invited
you
him
what
to
I
come and
say.
explain this to us. He didn't
What?
come.
We could discuss this another time, just in the interest of moving things along, but I think we need a lot more information. I do question the legality of it. Again, our teachers are, not beholden to, teaching students from another district. I mean, there's a million things in my mind that raise question here. So again, we need a lot more information, and nobody's committing to doing anything. And at the end of the day, our first responsibility and our first priority will always be students who live within the Jericho School
And
District.
I will continue to update the board as,
No, I agree with everything you're saying, both of you are saying, except for the fact that when you wake up one day and the law is there, and they're like, okay, now sue us.
in order for the law to take place, Sam, it needs to be passed by the Assembly and Senate. And again, whether you're talking about upstate or downstate legislators, their prime interest is in protecting the integrity of their school districts. And so, again, using the parallel, if you will, and you've mentioned the term, from regionalization to reorganization. Reorganization has been a topic of conversation for 50 years. And any time it's been broached in Albany, it hasn't even made it to the floor.
So can we just take on two positive notes then? One, if anyone's been reading the local papers, you'll see that one of our neighbors is putting forward an extremely large bond issue to expand their facility. So I just want to take another opportunity to thank Mr. Manuel to not be issuing debt in this type of environment. And so thank you for that fine planning. And another topic we talked about is Mr. Mankiewicz. If no one's seen our new athletics website, ad-free, much cleaner, much nicer to work. Supposedly there are a couple of bugs still getting worked out, but thank you very much for that improvement.
And while we're talking about Mr. Mankiewicz, I just realized on our agenda this evening, we are personally with great sorrow to see John's resignation effective June 30. John has, and again, as I think everyone who's been here knows, he has built our physical education program from a bare bones program into a rich, full program, giving our kids opportunities in so many ways. He's expanded our athletic program probably double in the size today than it was when he came here. He has put a huge emphasis on female sports and increasing opportunities for our female athletes. And again, what he has given to the school district and the mark that he's left, again, I'm sure we'll have ample opportunity to share that. But as long as his retirement resignation is on tonight, I wanted to say a word or two and thank John publicly for the incredible impact that he's had on the school district, and with sorrow, but with all the best wishes.
Thank you. Just moving on, as Sam had mentioned, the board did attend the New York State School Board Association annual conference and convention that was held this past weekend in New York City. In previous years, at least the ones that I've attended, have been in Syracuse and Buffalo. I think we all had an opportunity to attend some good sessions, meet with a lot of vendors, and glean a lot of really good information. Obviously, the commissioner was up there speaking about a number of topics, regionalization being one of them, and that's certainly something we're going to have to keep a close eye on. Other things that I personally took away that I thought was really interesting was a wonderful keynote speech on the use of artificial intelligence in education. Obviously, that's not even an up-and-coming topic. It's here, but I think there's just going to continue to be rapid development. I know we're very comfortable with Dr. Fogarty kind of leading the charge with respect to bringing AI to the Jericho community in a responsible and safe way. But I do think the future of education and a lot of different things is really going to be based on harnessing the power of artificial intelligence. We were able to actually witness an interview between Mr. Schneider from New York State School Boards and a artificially intelligent robot named Sophia, and he went on, I think, close to an hour, having a very high-level conversation with Sophia. I'm sure if you Google her, you could read all about her. But really, really remarkable. Certainly interesting. Moving on, just an update on the superintendent search. Again, the board has committed to being very transparent and communicating. Obviously, we've been disseminating information via Parent Square, via email, as well as on the district website. Just a brief update. HYA, our executive search firm, has met with approximately 20 different focus groups in the district. They've, from their own reports, received some really good constructive information. There is an active online survey which is available in a number of different languages. I would encourage everybody to participate. Those links are available on the website. That survey does close on Monday, October 28th, so I would just ask everybody, if you are going to participate, please do so before the deadline. And there are also 2 community forums. These are open invitation forums scheduled via Zoom. It's going to be October 30th at 10 a.m. and October 30th at 7 p.m. Hopefully you can make one of those times. Registration links are also on the district website under announcements. And I want to thank Denise Nash, who's done a real, great job helping coordinate these meetings between the search firm and the focus groups. Without Denise's help, this would have been impossible, so thank you, Denise. And lastly, just this past week, we met with the JTA and PTA Council. It's something that we do every year to have a dialogue with the different groups and kind of get a sense of what's on their mind and engage in conversation. One of the things that came up again, and this is something that we've discussed over the past couple of years, is the process by which we select high school valedictorians and how grades are assigned and the possibility of moving toward a grade weighting scheme. So we did say that we would open this up to conversation again, and I wanted to do that at this time. If anybody had any new thoughts about the valedictorian process, grade weighting, feel free to discuss that now. Certainly the board and anybody in the community, if they want to make a comment.
One of the things that in our conversation with the JK and PTA, one of the side or parallel conversations when we talked about two options, again, the option of staying with our current system or the option of waiting, we did have a brief conversation of the possibility, as there are another district in Nassau County, of actually eliminating valedictorian and salutatorian. So that also becomes a third option for the board to consider.
And then the ancillary issue, which seemed to be the impetus for the conversation, was the vast number of speakers at graduation. That seemed to be the impetus from some of the people who raised the issue. I don't think that's the crux of the issue, but that seemed to be what some people were more concerned about.
Again, I guess each of us may be plugged into different sources of information. After last year's graduation, I heard probably more kudos about high school graduation than I have in prior graduations. Yes, we had a lot of speakers. The kids spoke for, I think, 90 seconds.
Tops.
90 seconds, 120 seconds. We were on time, talking to the kids that spoke, talking to other graduates, talking to parents. I think last year's graduation, I did not hear any negative comments about the length, the number of speeches, or the length. I only heard, wow, this is what a wonderful day. Truly, it was a wonderful day.
I agree, they were the best speeches I ever heard at graduation, especially some of them. So to me, that's not the issue, but I just want to throw it out there because that's what, I think also when some people have gotten up to speak about this in the past, they've raised that as a side issue. And the diversity of speakers there as opposed to just that.
Greg, where are we at this year in terms of number of kids as we speak?
We started this year with 12 seniors who finished junior year with all A+ as a final average. So 12 current seniors that have 4.0 unweighted GPA.
So if you were to predict in October what it will look like 3 months from now, based upon past history, give me a range.
So obviously it's based on first and second quarter grades, so nothing is set in stone. We don't actually even announce valedictorians until early March, sometime in that range. So we have real time to see how students do in first and second quarters. So I don't think we've had a year in at least the past 6 where some of those students that begin the year with a 4.0, some of them will inevitably not still have a 4.0 after the first 2 quarters. It could happen, so it could still be 12. But if we're going to use the past couple of years as an example, we've gone from 21 to 15, I think was 1 year. So I'd say anywhere within a few. This is a smaller group to begin with, based on what we've become accustomed to.
Thanks, Greg.
Just a question, I don't know if you've had a chance to look at this, but if we are using the new weighted system, if we were to use weighted grades to calculate, to see who would be valedictorian, is there one clear candidate?
No, right now we have two seniors that have the same highest weighted GPA.
We can't get
Yeah.
away with
Yeah.
only having one ballot.
We can't.
Are they in that group?
Well, yes,
Greg, are they in that group?
they are. So if we were to look at, and we don't rank our kids, and I guess that's where this becomes a little bit of an issue. We're not ranking, but we do rank a little bit, just a little.
So even with waiting, we still find ourselves in a situation where we potentially have 2 valedictorians.
Yeah, right, and it could be a couple of salutatorians. Certainly out of a class of 300, we have kids that have matching weighted GPAs. We have a 4-point scale, which takes bands of grades on a 100-point scale and makes it, so it's just more chance that that's a possibility.
And they have the same weighted schedule for their senior year?
Not necessarily. This is just based on the course.
No,
they
well, those
work.
2 candidates that you said right now are tied. Do they have the same weighted schedule for the first 2 quarters?
I did not look at that.
Because that may just by default, if they both bang out A pluses, one of them's gonna end up with a higher weighted average.
Yes, right, if we were using weighted GPA.
If we were,
yes.
I understand.
Yes.
Wonderful. Did anybody in the audience want to speak on this? Teaching, please.
So my name's Patici Goenka. I'm a mom to a 5th grader at Jackson and an 8th grader who got to speak earlier today at the middle school. And I'm speaking to share my thoughts on the current valedictorian policy, so thank you so much for allowing us the opportunity to do so. And as I understand it, because I don't yet have a high schooler, but I certainly understood it to be the highest unweighted grade point average, which we must acknowledge is truly an impressive achievement for all the students who are able to do that. And as I've thought about how this policy may or perhaps may not be updated, one possibility that we've been considering and that I've spoken to lots of parents in the community about is updating it to include the weighted average, sort of aligning with the recent change in our weighting from the board policy. While logical, I also agree with Mr. Grishman's, not that you're suggesting it, but just that introduction of this idea that maybe we rethink the purpose of the valedictorian designation to begin with. So in a world where we think about success as multidimensional, and certainly increasingly so, we have to consider that success is going to be dependent on many different factors that are quite dynamic. I feel like solely relying on a metric that's unidimensional, like a GPA, seems like an outdated process. I also wonder, what does being valedictorian truly signify? How does it predict success in college, in your career, in life attainment? I did a quick Google Scholar search. There is a book written in 1987 about following the lives of about 20 to 50 valedictorians for the course of their career, and there was no correlation between valedictorian designation and ultimate career goals and life achievements as this author sought to describe. So at this time, as we think about what the valedictorian designation provides us, it is an incredible honor to be able to give them the ability to speak to your fellow classmates, parents, your school community at graduation, no doubt. But I'd love to understand what are the processes, what are the characteristics, what are the attributes that we seek to highlight in those speeches, multiple, because I imagine you want to hear diverse perspectives. And is it really that numerical grade point average that we seek to really hear from? So as I evaluated this, I wanted to take the time to think about the bold step, and I'm not sure that we're all ready to be there yet, but the bold step to eliminate the valedictorian title altogether. I'm a mother to 2 young boys, as I mentioned. I'm also a pediatrician, and I understand the importance entirely of fostering an environment that supports emotional growth of our children, intellectual curiosity, and self-motivation, qualities that I know all of us as Jericho parents and educators value. But I really do worry that striving for the valedictorian title impacts students' well-being. Where one grade, one bad day, one bad class, one bad classroom dynamic impacts that student's ability to feel like they are, quote, out of the running for this title that is so sought after. Right, I also wonder how this affects students' class selection, and we talked a little bit about potentially moving towards a weighted average, determining class valedictorian. So how does this impact students choosing which classes they take? Are they going to limit their options based on the incredible directory of classes offered here, based on how easy or hard they've heard they are? How it will be weighted, and is it better for me to take a more weighted class in my senior year versus not, just to maintain a higher weighted average? These are really important considerations. We don't live in a world where perfection prevails, and I don't think we should be having our children aspire to that as well. So I thank you for considering and bringing up this perspective, and I hope that the board really gives this deep consideration as we think about the policy.
Did you have a specific recommendation, or you were saying we should just consider eliminating it? I don't know, I was unclear if you were saying, you believe we should get rid of it.
I'm
If you don't want to say that, that's fine, I just.
No, I would be perfectly happy eliminating the title valedictorian as it stands in the current educational system. I'm not against saying we should have opportunities to honor academic achievements, and I know we have an incredible senior award night that does a lot of that, but if there is an ability to honor academic prowess in graduation, I think that should be an attribute that's part of the equation for who gets to speak. So ultimately, my understanding is that valedictorians is a sought after position. I think for kids, some of them may be excited to speak at graduation. I don't know that all of the valedictorians are, I'm not sure, we have to ask them. But I know that being able to say I'm valedictorian probably means a lot to the students. It also means a lot in terms of their ability to speak at graduation. I'm not saying we shouldn't honor academic prowess and academic achievements. Absolutely we do, we will, and we'll, you know, that, but I don't think that the valedictorian designation should be one that is driving our kids in 2024 to select classes, to think about how their grades may impact their ultimate, you know, sort of ability to get this one title. So that, I know that I didn't fully answer the question about do I or do I not need it, but.
I'm not looking for, I just
Yeah.
made sure I understood what you were saying, that's what I thought you were saying, but I didn't know if you were going.
I would be fine getting rid of the title completely.
Thank you, I really appreciate your comments, and I've been thinking along the same lines, because I think last week when we met with PTA, you know, you guys said, you know, you wanted to poll the board and see what we thought, and thinking through, you know, recently came up, like you said, that we, you know, that's a possibility to just get rid of it altogether, and, you know, I've been on the board for many years, and one of our primary focuses has been to reduce student stress, and I think someone said, maybe Sam said, you know, you could be out of the running in 8th grade if you don't take certain classes, and how stressful is that? So, you know, I agree with your sentiments, because I think it's important to reduce stress, and, you know, I think one of the reasons Hank has appreciated having all the valedictorians, because the last 2 years they did a breakfast for the valedictorians and their families, and it was a really special event, and he was very proud of it. And it really was nice, we got to go this past year. And there are ways to, I think last year's board rep made a suggestion, like if you went to weighted, you could still somehow honor the people who had all 4.0s by having them honored in some other way. So there are ways to honor students, and I think it really would reduce stress, because you hear, you know, kids taking classes that they should or shouldn't take based on their interests, and they're taking them because they want to get a certain grade, whether it's a lower level class or a higher level class, depending on how we do it. And I agree with your sentiments.
I was just going to say that I was just reviewing the survey that our former board rep did last year, and I thought it was interesting that most kids did not choose their classes based on whether or not it would put them in or out of the running for valedictorian.
Thank you.
So you just raised a couple of interesting issues that, I'm sorry to go off on a tangent, but I'd like to give you back some more homework overall. That it really does raise the question. I would guess, in my experience, that where students make these selections is based on trying to get into the school of their choice, much more than trying to be valedictorian. And it's really worth, like, you know, I think a lot of those decisions, and whether Greg has that type of data, I think that's so much more the focal point of those decision-making processes, more than anything else. You know, it may be that valedictorian in a lot of ways is a remnant of another time compared to other things. Would you rather win Regeneron? We just mentioned, you know, it's astounding. We just started this agricultural science program, and now you have all these people who are honored in the state. So, you know, rather than being valedictorian group of 300 students in 1 year, being one of the top in the state, is, this constant glorious thing that we experience every year in our school or nationally, again and again and again. It's a fascinating thing because we spend a lot of time on valedictory choices and addresses, but I would like to keep shifting the focus back on this level of achievement that seems to be all over the place. It seems to be something that's way beyond 300 students in 1 year that we managed to achieve in 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th grade, and making those type of decisions. By the time students are in 10th grade, more than 60% of them are taking honors, college level classes in AP. This is ridiculous. And the success that they have in that is also ridiculous. So as we're doing that, please, let's keep getting back to those ideas of that level of achievement that our students achieve. So thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you. I don't believe anybody submitted anything for valedictorian. No. Interestingly enough, obviously this is something that we've been thinking about for some time, and there's no question it's a tremendous honor to be selected as valedictorian of your high school class. I, for one, was not valedictorian of my high school class. And it's interesting, Patici brought it up. Newsday does something, I think they do it every year, kind of like, where are they now? And it's interesting to see, where these high-performing students are, and who's running the nuclear reactor at MIT, who's doing research with some incredible researchers someplace. There's no question that these students are all performing at the highest level, and invariably, I'm sure their performance in college validates that. Interestingly, based on my conversation with advisors and Mr. Sloan, I don't believe being selected as valedictorian has anything to do with the college admission process. These students are usually in school already and are invariably attending the best schools in the country. So I think this is all really important information. I thank everybody for sharing it. Obviously, feel free to email us, give us a call, and this is something that we'll continue to look at, so thank you. All right, moving on, opportunity for public to be heard. Please note, if you would like to make a comment or ask a question, please tell us your name and affiliation if you are representing a specific group. If you'd like your statement to be included in our board minutes, you must hand in a written copy of your remarks to our district clerk, Mr. Victor Manuel, immediately before speaking. Importantly, as always, public discussion on matters relating to staff and students at which their reputation, privacy, or right to due process or those of others could in some way be violated is prohibited.
I just want to weigh in one more thing on that valedictorian discussion.
Absolutely.
Thank you. I think first off that testing. First off, that perspective on kind of revisiting the definition or just the characteristic of what a valedictorian is, I think that is really important, because at the end of the day, if you're looking at the definition of the word valedictorian, it's top, like #1 in the class, right? But that's not what it is right now. We don't have that. I do think that is a positive thing. It's very much treated as, I guess, another award on top of that, senior awards night or something like that, another kind of designation that can go to those people who have achieved, obviously, the great feat of maintaining that 4.0 unweighted throughout high school. And I think going back to a lot of what Dr. Hartnett was saying, I don't think, at least in my personal experience, speaking with others, and I get my experience myself, I don't think valedictorian is treated as that kind of end goal for students. I do think the issue of trying to take classes to maximize your weighted GPA, your unweighted GPA, that's always going to be a thing. Again, going back to that the college application process, kids are always going to have that at the top of mind, and they're always going to be kind of maybe a kid takes something that they wouldn't be best suited for because they think it's more prestigious, or maybe they're trying to maintain a higher grade so they don't go for that more difficult thing. And I think that's always going to be a discussion that kids are going to need to have, and there might be poor choices along the way, but I don't think that the valedictorian designation really is as big of a driver of that as it might be perceived from the outside. And I think going back to a lot of Caitlin, my predecessor's data and her findings from last year, kids, I think, do think that students understand that of, just not, I don't think students place that much weight on that valedictorian throughout all of high school, and I think at least in the current stance, I think a lot of that is a function of it's treated as something that can be achieved from anyone. Of course, like it's very much a you kind of thing. If you maintain those A pluses, it doesn't matter what anyone else does, it's still a final thing. And I think if we did pivot to something of weighted, it is going to create more of a sense of competition and even more of a sense of stress, as we've said before. But I think the prospect of maybe eliminating it or just treating it in a different sense, that's possible. But I think right now it's honestly eliminated. In my mind, it's just under the valedictorian name is still there, but just the actual, we don't have a one valedictorian, and I think that's possible, honestly.
Thank you, ma'am.
I just have a word here. I think it kind of encourages
I apologize.
competition.
Could you go to the mic so that people at home can hear you?
Okay.
Thank you.
It's just alarming, you know. That,
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't know.
I'm a mom of a 5th grader and a 9th grader, and I just want to say that in this world with increasing competition and anxiety, this would come under aggressive competition. And I think it's a good idea to just eliminate another title that kind of creates more competition and anxiety where it's not really needed. That's it.
Thank you. Just getting back into opportunity for the public to be heard, just with the caveat that I previously mentioned. Would anybody like to approach the microphone?
I'm not going to let
Okay.
Max. Thank you, Max.
Thank you, Max, good job.
My name is Amy Weiss, I'm going to just speak from who just said, I was here the other month.
Yes.
And I just want to specific forward that it's continuing, and as soon as that discussions with the government, confidential, since we agreed that it would be confidential.
Yeah, we can discuss that
But I
confidentially.
just wanted to just make it aware, Mr. Cronin said if there's an issue, just come back to the board, but I don't want to take up everybody's time, I just wanted to let everybody aware.
Oh, I do appreciate that, but pursuant to our conversation last month, I did meet with you as I promised. So we can have this conversation offline, but thank you. Okay. No, that's all right. Thank you. Would anybody else like to speak? Somebody.
Anybody?
Do we have any email correspondence?
No.
No?
I have a question about procedures.
Please approach the microphone, please.
We're gonna find out who you are this time?
You're gonna find out who I am. I'm a friend, but I may have to serve you some papers for multiple kids with disabilities. Because I started an organization called School Watch.
Can you just please state your name, please?
George Diebold, independent educational advocate, and founder of School Watch. I advocate to keep schools in compliance for the benefit of general education students and regular education students. I bring impartial hearings against school districts all over the country, and I am basically 95% successful because I show what's real. I vet every client, and I don't take a parent's word on anything. I'm not a parent's mouthpiece. I advocate for the child's needs and not mommy's wants. Your law firm goes against lawyers that will advocate for mommy's wants no matter what it is. If the kid doesn't need it, I don't fight for it. I petitioned New York State Education Department to stop making kids and parents purchase the T83 calculator, which is against the state constitution. I helped craft a memo that went to all 840 school districts that is prohibited. Additionally, your school district, as well as others, with all due respect, sir, I suspect is charging kids for field trips. And that's also against the state constitution. And it's been litigated in California and other states. If you guys approve a field trip, you should put it in the budget. I'm about to bring that up against school districts all over Long Island. And when I advocate for a kid with disabilities, they don't fix the problem in the school district, but as part of the settlement, I get all the field trip money back. And then they keep doing it. You're talking about compliance issues. When the commissioner issued the memo that took me 6 months to create with the State Office of Counsel, because they're so slow, because that's the way government moves. News, they didn't want to cover it when I say they were, you know, I took that case on because a woman couldn't afford 2 calculators because she had a deadbeat, she was married to a deadbeat dad and had 2 kids with disabilities and she couldn't feed them. So that's why I took up the issue. But basically, I offered to be a consultant to you guys as for $1 a year to tell you some things that you might want to know that goes on in your district, sir. Because you know, over 80% of my clients that I bring hearings for are teachers. So they'll go to a CSE meeting with me and then they'll say, you didn't get my name from, you didn't get Diebold's name from me, and then all of a sudden I'm representing. So they say, look, we don't have makeups for speech and language in our district. We don't have 504 plans because we're told not to give them. This law firm, with all due respect to Mr. Goodstadt, I was in Newsday because I helped uncover that Larry Reich, a lawyer for their firm, billed 1,623 days in 1 year. He was billing consecutively, that he was a private contractor, billing 5 school districts. I fired to have him disbarred, it was in Newsday. Google activist seeks his formative pension case.
I want to hear what you have to say, just stick to.
All right, but I'm just telling you, but I also at the same time, I also filed to disbar Elliot Spitzer because he was with the process.
Mr. Diebold,
I'm just trying to qualify what I do.
Mr. Diebold, you said it's about procedures, what's your question?
I have 3 minutes. My question is, when you go to executive session before or after this? Or both? So when you come back from executive session, is it still open to the public or do you lock the public out? Because my understanding is that you go to executive session, we say the meeting's over, and the public it doesn't get to come back or wait for you guys to come back.
Anytime we've gone into executive session, I should let the president speak. Anytime we've gone into executive session after a meeting, this room has always been open, and we've come back here, and actually sometimes there are people here.
That's good, because I was told that you might not be doing that.
No, with all due respect, Mr. Diebold, I mean, we obviously, subscribe to all facets of the open meetings law. With respect to executive session, we go into executive session only to discuss things that are protected under executive session. And we have gone into executive session at the end of a public meeting. If we're in this room, we come back to this room to adjourn.
And I know, and I've been in executive session with school boards. His colleague, Mr. Maxson, arranged it in South Huntington because they would rather me say things in that meeting, in executive session, than say it out in public.
No, that's not why we go.
I'm saying that it actually pertains to legal.
No, I hear you.
Just so you know.
What I can say, I can only speak to what goes on in Jericho, and I can tell you that we adhere to the law, we adhere to open meetings.
Sir, with all due respect, you don't know what's going on in Jericho. Because they're not telling you. I get people hand me this, you might want to read this. So, and I meet the superintendent, or, you guys, the way that Hank Gershon sits there, and you guys, Mr. Gershman, I'm sorry, sir. You guys are, that's the executive branch, you guys are the legislative branch, and you're kind of a little too cozy. He's sitting at the dais like he's a member. And that's the problem. You know what I mean?
I understand what you're tell me your name again?
George Diebold.
I appreciate you taking time to speak with us.
Are you offering to tell us information?
I am offering, I'm gonna bring you information, I'm gonna bring you some cases, and if you cannot, you can settle, you cannot, there'll be reasonable offers, I'm advocating for.
Oh, so you're bringing a settlement, or you're not bringing us information?
I'm bringing cases.
Okay, you said you were gonna share information with us.
I'm gonna share information with you via
Mr.
email.
Diebold, thank you.
I'm gonna bring, excuse me, sir, you're not a member of the board, and you can't cut me off and say thank you. That's a problem. That's a problem for society, because he's acting as if he's a board member. Don't let him speak for you against the public, because he's saying that's enough. I can sue you, because he's telling me that's enough.
You said you had 3 minutes. You said you had 3 minutes. Your 3 minutes expired.
Where's the clock? Where did it buzz? Is it 3 minutes in your head, Steve? Okay?
With all due
3
respect,
minutes in your head?
Mr. Diebold, please. Thank you for your comments.
You don't want to meet me in the hearing room.
Okay. I appreciate you taking the time to speak with
I
us.
know what 3 minutes is.
Okay.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, sir.
No, not
But
at all.
he showed me disrespect. He's not a member of the board. He shouldn't be telling me to stop.
Mr. Diebold, I fully understand what you're saying.
I'll talk to you after the meeting if you're available.
I'm always available.
Thank you, sir. It's a pleasure to meet you.
I look forward to meeting you after.
Thank you.
Anybody else like to speak at the microphone? All right, thank you. We'll move into unfinished business. Adoption of board policy number 5681, school safety plans. Recommended motion be it resolved that the Board of Education adopts the following policy as shown in the attached policy 5681, school safety plans. Do we have a motion? Divya, second. Jen, discussion?
This is exactly the change from last one, correct?
That's my understanding, yes. Thank you. All in favor? Unanimous, so carried. Thank you. Adoption of Board Policy 5683, evacuation, lockdown, and emergency dismissal drills. Recommended motion, be it resolved that the Board of Education adopts the following policy as shown in the attached Policy 5683. Do we have a motion? Jen, second? Jill, discussion?
Again, as we.
Nothing.
Perfect.
All in favor? Opposed? No. Unanimous, thank you. Adoption of Board Policy 7132. It's labeled resident students. It should be non-resident students, and that should also be the title of the policy. Recommended motion, be it resolved that the Board of Education adopts the following policy as shown in the attached Policy 7132, the correct name being non-resident students. Do we have a motion? Jen, second? Divya, discussion?
We were going to, Mr. Goodstaff put together an edit to our existing policy. I forget which policy you said is about allowing fourth graders who complete fourth grade to stay within their elementary school should their parents move to another school within the district. I know it doesn't go under this policy, but if you could maybe get that policy going for next meeting.
It'll be for next month, 7130.
7130, thank you.
Wonderful. All in favor on 7132? No opposed, unanimous, thank you. Adoption of Board Policy 7470, student government.
I don't remember that conversation. I'm not saying not to, but I don't remember.
Absolutely, I'll send you the clip from last month's board meeting, but I mean, you can take Mr. Goodstaff, we talked about this. And
It was discussed and we put up for our first read. It's up to the board to decide whether to pass it through.
No, I don't remember hearing that.
That exact issue was in this policy.
No, we're talking about, that would be a
That was a
resident student
resident.
who's just moving to another part, goes from Seaman to Jackson.
That was an internal.
He'd be able to stay with Seaman, that's why Mr. Goodstaff said it doesn't go under this policy.
No, that would be something entirely different, okay. All right, so we had a unanimous adoption on 7132, 7470, student government. Be resolved, the Board of Education adopts the following policy as shown in the attached, student government 7470. Any motion on that? Divya, Jen, all in favor?
Oh, wait, discussion,
Yeah.
sorry. You had also promised that you were gonna suggest some policies to get rid of, since we have this, by everyone's admission, sort of, I don't know, superfluous policy on student government. And along those lines, can you talk about, was an Erie policy suggestion. My understanding is that some of the other policy companies out there have smaller recommendations. Does anyone know how we decided on Erie, how long we've used Erie for, and whether or not, do you use Erie with all your clients, Mr. Goodstaff, or?
I do not, most of them use NISBA.
Okay, so the idea of examining a different policy thing wouldn't get pushback from Ingerman as oh, that's a bad decision to make. So it really would be a conversation the board might want to have to discuss whether or not, if we went to NISBA, we could shorten our policy book.
Correct.
Because my understanding is they do have probably 40% less, 30% less.
About that, and again, when you say pushback from Ingerman, whatever policies you have, there's no pushback whether it's Erie, BOCES, or NISBA.
I don't mean pushback, I mean a recommendation to say, wow, you guys are really making a stupid decision.
Of course.
And is there anyone else besides Erie and NISBA who we might want to consider if we were to look at this?
Those are really the only ones that I know of. I mean, Ingerman also writes their own policies as well. That's kind of that uses the mine. Thank you. What I'm saying is follows the NISBA numbering. NISBA numbering is the common numbering that's used across New York State.
Do you have a market share between Erie and NISBA?
No.
Thank you.
I discussed this with Steve a number of times, and
I discussed this with Steve a number of times because over the years, it seems like the policies that we get samples of, the NISBA ones seem to be more in line with what we're thinking. So if we wanted to redo the whole policy manual, it would be a big process. And it might be something we want to consider doing, but it will take a long time and might take a couple of years to go through each policy, but it's a big job, but something we should definitely consider doing.
If we're putting in the effort to make future boards more efficient and more effective, it's incumbent upon us to do that. So I think it's just a conversation we should have, nothing to do with adopting this policy tonight.
All in favor of 7470? Do I speak? Okay. All in favor of 7470? Any opposed? No, unanimous, thank you. All right, moving into new business, I'm going to jump to number 2, acceptance of donation. Recommended motion, be it resolved that the Board of Education accept a donation of $250 from Jericho SEPTA, who respectfully requests that funds be allocated to Cool Beans Catering. Do we have a motion? Second? All in favor? Thank you, that's a very generous gift. We appreciate it, and it will certainly go to good use. We're going to move 1 and 3 together because we do have just a couple of changes. Adoption of calendar for the 2025-2026 school year. Recommended motion, be it resolved, the Board of Education adopts the calendar as attached for the 2025-26 school year. And be it resolved, the Board of Education approve the attached 2024-2025 budget prep calendar for the 2025-26 school year and the 2024-25 annual election calendar for the May 20th, 2025 annual election budget vote with the following change. Moving budget workshop number 3 from.
You want to do that all in?
Okay.
So March 4th, budget workshop number 3 will go to March 6th.
Correct.
The budget review meeting will go from March 20th to March 13th.
Correct.
And the Board of Education meeting, budget adoption, will go from March 27th to March 20th.
That's correct. All right. So we'll make a motion on these 2 with those changes.
The motion will include budget calendar, school calendar, and the changes to the, to our meeting dates.
Correct.
That's usually a separate resolution, just for the meeting date.
It's all kind of, because the meeting, it's all kind of connected. So just in the interest of carrying that. We have a motion? Second? Discussion?
I just want to say thank you because I have a conflict, so I appreciate you all these things.
I'd like to ask that since, again, not necessarily tied right to this motion, but since we're talking about the election calendar here, I'd like to suggest that maybe in December, we talk about election policy. There was some concern, issues, that I think as a board should be addressed, and I'd say between now and December, that should give people time to understand it, and if it's something that Mr. Goodstead says should be executive, I don't believe it is, that we would need to just talk about. So I'd ask that when you're putting together the calendar or the agenda for December, we put that topic on there. I'm happy to give you subtopics and things like that.
Wonderful. Yeah, some of those things we actually took away from the New York State School Boards too. There were a couple of vendors there who do a lot of work with, not necessarily overseeing, but helping support school districts administer a vote and ensuring that, only qualified voters are in fact casting ballots. So again, that may be something we want to look at.
I think December is just enough time to get us.
Yeah. Wonderful.
I just want to make one more point that we're scheduled on the calendar to meet with the PTA again and JTA on the 20th before the budget review, so I don't know if we should consider, we can talk about it after, but consider moving that to the 13th as well.
It makes sense.
That's easy enough to do. All right, all in favor of the calendar and the proposed changes? It's unanimous on those 2, Victor, 1 and 3. Wonderful, thank you. Approval of schedules. All right, do we have a motion on A 14734 through U 371? Motion? Second? Jim? All in favor?
Wait.
Discussion? That's all.
Sorry, Dr. Beltran, were you about to say something?
I did have a question, but go ahead.
You sure? Got it. Keep one tired.
This one's for Victor. I don't know the exact number, sorry, but the Omnia purchase that was,
Which one was that?
I wish I knew, Omnia, OMNIA, it's for a number of cafeteria items.
Okay.
Is that from the surplus, or is this separate, something separate that we needed?
Yeah, the surplus was, the over surplus was about 19,000. This is definitely above and beyond, but needed. Well, it's using the overall fund balance in the school budget. It's not coming out of the general fund.
Just along those lines, the renew contract, the $4 million that we discussed, that was out of the capital fund balance, though, right?
That's out of the capital fund. That was for all of the bathroom renovations, the music band
I
room.
just want to make sure it's out of the cap, yeah.
Yeah, it's all out of the capital.
And then final thing on 1472, the DAAC 2024 contract, a very, very long contract where we're providing mental health. It talks about there that the scope and services would be outlined in Appendix A. I did not see an Appendix A. I saw an Exhibit A, which had absolutely nothing to do with the scope and services. But when I was looking at it this morning or afternoon, I didn't see them, so I don't know what we're providing. What are the services that we're providing?
This is the
Northwell?
No. This is the Oasis.
The Oasis.
I don't know, I didn't even see the word Oasis in there. It was like, we're the contractor somehow, and we're.
Oasis is the agency from the state. We've been getting this grant probably 15, 20 years. And it went from 75,000, I think it's up to 80-something thousand at this point. And it was, it's part of the drug-free school grant that we were allocated, and it provides services that Cafe 126, Top Benjamin was always involved in it.
I believe that the last time I looked at it, we used a portion of those funds to offset our social worker salaries, our 3 social worker salaries. So I think at the origination, it actually funded one of our social workers. I think, Victor, I think we're now budgeting where you're taking the last recollection, a piece for each of the social workers for the work that they do specifically related to drug and alcohol abuse.
If you could just get me the Appendix A when I have a chance, thank you.
That being said, on the schedules, all in favor? Opposed? Unanimous, thank you. We have a motion to adjourn. Jan?
2 things. One, to all those celebrating Happy Diwali, and I think I can speak on behalf of the board, but I would never make that assumption. And second, regardless of who you will be voting for, please go out and vote. Set a good example for your children.
All in favor of adjournment? Unanimous, so carried. Thank you, everybody. Get home safe. And we'll hopefully see you for the cell phone group.
And board and superintendent profile.